All right, so get ready because today we are diving into some seriously intense viewer reactions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, to that show, you know the one everyone's been talking about, and we're going to be looking at based on all the comments and stuff.
Yeah.
It seems like that finale
Oh, yeah.
left a lot of people
Well,
heartbroken, let's be honest.
yeah.
Ready to unpack all the feelings and the drama.
Absolutely. I think it's really fascinating to look at
Yeah.
just the sheer volume of comments expressing that heartbreak.
Yeah.
I mean, it's clear that this ending
Oh, yeah.
hit a nerve.
Yeah, and I mean, you even pulled out this quote
Yeah.
from someone who said, to thun it,
Hmm.
which translates to, like, after watching it really fits the saying, I never doubted sincerity, but sincerity changes in an instant.
Right.
Oof.
Right.
Talk about just hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah.
So what do you think it is about this ending?
Specifically that, like, really seems to have resonated so strongly with people.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that the show has been building up
Yeah.
these characters and these relationships over time.
Right.
And, it really makes you start to believe in their sincerity. And then,
Yeah.
bam, the finale comes in
Yeah.
and throws in this huge curveball
Yeah.
that really makes you start to question everything.
Right.
And that betrayal of trust,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to things like love
Mm-hmm.
and relationships,
Mm-hmm.
can be just incredibly painful to watch,
Yeah.
even in fiction.
Right.
Because it's like it taps into our own fears and vulnerabilities.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, and speaking of things that make us question everything,
Right.
you also pointed out
Yeah.
how much the plot itself
Mm-hmm.
really frustrated some people. Like
Yeah.
all the misunderstandings,
Mm-hmm.
the lack of communication between characters.
Right.
It just seemed like,
One person even said, "Oh, cool, cool,"
oh, wow.
which basically means, like,
Yeah.
the whole time I hated that they didn't have mouths. Why are there so many misunderstandings?
Right.
It's like they were trying to make it hard
Yeah.
to understand what was going on.
Well, it's that classic,
Right.
manufactured drama trope.
It's like a tale as old as time.
Yeah, and screenwriters will use these conflicts and misunderstandings to try to
Yes.
create suspense
Yeah.
and keep us, on the edge of our seat and glued to the screen.
Right.
But I think there's a fine line between a clever plot twist
Yeah.
and a situation that feels totally forced.
Right.
And I think when it's done poorly, it can really feel like
Yeah.
the characters are acting completely out of character just for the sake of drama.
Totally.
And that can be so frustrating for viewers.
So is it just bad writing, or is there like
Well-
a reason why they use this tactic
Yeah.
so often?
Yeah. I think it's a really tricky balance to strike.
Yeah.
Because sometimes these misunderstandings can actually add layers to the story.
Oh, okay.
Because you think about it in real life, people
Mhm.
don't always say what they mean.
Right.
And communication can be very messy.
Usually.
So some degree of miscommunication, I think, can actually make characters
Huh.
and their relationships
Right.
feel more realistic and believable, even if it is frustrating.
Okay, interesting point.
Yeah.
But even with all those plot frustrations,
Mm-hmm.
I know you highlighted
Yeah.
that a lot of viewers still actually really loved the overall look of the show, like the music, the
Yeah.
cinematography, the
Absolutely.
actors' chemistry.
Mhm.
There was even a comment about how good the kissing scenes were,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, which means like super good at kissing.
Yeah.
It makes me blush just reading that.
But it actually brings up a really interesting point
Yeah.
about how these visuals and these sounds can influence our emotional responses.
Mm-hmm.
Think about those beautifully shot scenes,
Yeah.
that amazing music swelling at just the right moment.
Right.
These things can evoke such powerful feelings in us as viewers
Yeah.
that I think sometimes it can even overshadow weaknesses in the plot.
Mm.
I'm curious for you, did the aesthetic qualities of this show
Okay.
ever make you overlook some of those plot issues that we talked about?
Wow. That is a really good question.
Yeah.
I have to think about that one.
Okay.
But moving on, we've got to talk about the
Yeah.
elephant in the room.
Yeah.
That cliffhanger ending.
Oh, yeah.
Despite all the criticism, you flagged a ton of comments pleading for a third season.
Yeah.
It seems like people are desperate to see
Yeah.
how this all resolves.
Mhm.
There are comments like, cool, which is So when is season 3 coming out?
Right.
Like, so much anticipation. Why do you think people are so invested in seeing this story continue, even if they weren't completely satisfied with season 2?
I think it all comes down to the psychology of investment. You know, we get so hooked on these characters and their relationships and their journeys. It's like we become so emotionally invested in their happiness, even though they're fictional.
Right.
So when a show ends on a cliffhanger like that, it just feels unfinished.
Right.
We crave that resolution, that closure to really satisfy our emotional investment.
It's like when you've spent hours and hours on a puzzle.
Exactly.
And then someone comes along and loses the last piece.
Right.
Like, you need to see that picture complete.
Yeah.
And speaking of needing to understand things, you also pointed out some really insightful comments.
Okay.
Where viewers were really digging deep into the character's psychology. There was one about how the main characters are both actually dealing with past traumas.
Yeah.
Yeah, when is there sissing matelick, which is like both the male and female leads have childhood traumas. They've encouraged each other in the process of love, and they will understand and try to save the relationship.
Wow. Heavy stuff.
Yeah. Deep. Yeah, really deep. And, you know, it's interesting that you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because the show's portrayal of trauma and its impact on relationships, I think, is one of the things that makes it stand out. You know, when we see these characters struggling with their past and how it affects their present,
Right.
it just adds this layer of complexity that makes them feel so much more human.
Right.
It's like we're not just watching a love story. We're watching these characters grapple with real-life issues that so many of us can relate to, even if our experiences are different. Right, yeah. It makes those relationship struggles feel much more realistic, more relatable.
Absolutely.
And speaking of relatable, or maybe not so relatable, you flagged a lot of comments about the male lead's actions in the finale.
Oh, yeah.
People were not happy with him. One comment even said, "Bonk."
Oh, wow.
Which is like, it's really outrageous for the male lead to say that the female lead ruined everything for his family.
Yeah.
So do you think this backlash was justified? Or were viewers being a little too harsh?
Well, it's definitely a turning point in the story.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a lot of viewers felt like it was out of character for him.
Okay.
And to me, that kind of strong reaction suggests that maybe the writers missed the mark a little bit. You know, a character can make bad decisions, but those decisions need to feel believable. They need to be consistent with their established personality and their motivations. You know, if it feels like the writers are forcing a character to act a certain way just to create drama or move the plot forward, it can really break that trust that we have as viewers.
It's like, come on, writers. You're smarter than this.
Exactly.
But okay, let's get into some specifics.
Okay.
You included this really detailed plot summary from one of the viewers highlighting all the family secrets.
Right.
The betrayals, the manipulations.
Yeah, it's like a whole other...
It's like there's a whole soap opera
Yeah.
happening beneath the surface of this seemingly simple love story.
Exactly. And that's where things get really fascinating.
Right.
You know, those complex family dynamics, the secrets and the lies, the weight of past choices.
Right.
All of those things add these layers to the story that just make us question everything we thought we knew about the character.
Yeah, it's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
Yes.
The more you uncover, the more you realize how much is hidden beneath the surface.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got heartbreak, plot twists, family drama. Sounds like this show has all the ingredients for a hit.
Right.
But let's go back to the elephant in the room, that cliffhanger ending.
Okay.
We know viewers desperately want a third season.
Yeah.
But do you think all this criticism of the second season will actually make people more excited for a potential continuation? Like, can the writers redeem themselves?
That's a great question. And honestly, I think it could go either way.
Yeah.
Sometimes when a show leaves us feeling frustrated or disappointed,
Sure.
we're less likely to want to come back for more. It's like, why waste my time?
Right.
If it's just going to let me down again.
Yeah, been there.
Right. But on the other hand, sometimes that frustration can actually fuel our desire for a resolution.
Okay.
If we're invested in the characters and the story, we need to see how it all plays out. Even if we're a little skeptical, it's like that sunk cost fallacy idea that you mentioned earlier.
Right.
We've already invested so much emotional energy that we have to see it through to the end.
Totally.
Even if it's just to confirm that it was all a waste of time.
So true. So true.
Right.
So for you, do you think the heartbreak outweighs the frustration? Are you still holding out hope for that third season?
I am cautiously optimistic.
Okay.
I think the show has a lot of potential. And I'm really curious to see if the writers can address the criticisms and deliver a satisfying conclusion.
Yeah.
It all depends on how they handle those complex themes, character arcs.
Fingers crossed they don't mess it up.
Right.
But let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
You mentioned that one viewer pointed out how both main characters had difficult childhoods.
Right.
And how their past traumas influenced their relationship. Do you think the show did a good job of portraying the impact of those past experiences?
One of the show's strengths, actually, often in romantic dramas, trauma is used as a plot device. A quick explanation for why a character acts a certain way.
Right.
But in this show, it feels much more nuanced.
Okay.
We see how those past wounds actually shape their present behaviors, their insecurities, their ability to trust.
You're saying it's not just a surface level thing.
Exactly. We see them struggling to communicate, to be vulnerable, to overcome those ingrained patterns. It adds a layer of realism to their relationship and makes their struggles feel much more authentic.
So going back to that heartbreak theme. Do you think this show is ultimately a tragedy? Or is there still a possibility for a happy ending?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
And honestly, I'm not sure. I think part of what makes this show so compelling is that it doesn't shy away from the complexities of human relationships. Love isn't always easy, and sometimes even the strongest bonds are tested.
So you're saying it's not your typical fairy tale romance?
Definitely not.
Okay.
It feels much more grounded, much more realistic.
Yeah.
And while I think a lot of viewers are craving a happy ending for these characters, I am not sure a simple happily ever after would feel true to the show's tone and themes.
Right.
It might actually be more powerful, more thought-provoking, if the ending reflects the messiness and complexity of real life.
That's a really interesting point. It's like sometimes the most satisfying endings aren't necessarily the happiest ones, but the ones that feel the most real.
Exactly. And sometimes those endings leave us with more questions than answers, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It can spark conversations, make us think about our own lives and our own relationships, and maybe even challenge our own beliefs about love and loss and what it means to truly connect with another person.
Okay, so deep thoughts for a Friday.
Right.
But I'm curious, going back to those viewer comments. Do you remember any specific theories or predictions?
Oh, absolutely.
About what might happen in a potential third season?
The viewers were full of ideas.
Okay, like what?
Some people think the male lead will go on a redemption arc. Trying to win back the female lead's trust.
Right.
Others think the focus will shift to uncovering more family secrets. Maybe even a revenge plot.
Ooh, juicy.
Right.
And what about you? Any personal theories that you would like to share?
Well, based on the themes the show has been exploring, I think it would be really interesting if the third season focused on forgiveness and healing. It's easy to crave a simple resolution. But real life is rarely that neat and tidy. I think it would be really powerful to see these characters grapple with the fallout of their actions, learn from their mistakes, and maybe even find a way to forgive themselves and each other, even if they don't end up together romantically.
Wow, that would definitely be a bold choice for the writers.
Right.
But I think it would make for a really impactful story.
Right. It would be a reminder that even when things fall apart, there's still hope for growth. And redemption, and ultimately, isn't that what we all want? Both for ourselves and for the characters that we invest in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, this has been quite a journey.
It has.
Through the emotional landscape of this show. We've covered heartbreak, frustration, hope, and everything in between.
Absolutely.
Feels like we've only scratched the surface. But before we wrap things up, I wanted to touch on something. You mentioned earlier about the intense desire for a third season. it seems like even with all the heartbreak and frustration, viewers are still holding out hope for a continuation.
Absolutely.
What do you think that is? Is it purely just a need for closure, or is there something more?
You know, I think it's a combination of factors.
Okay.
There's definitely that sunk cost fallacy that we talked about.
What?
We've invested so much time and emotional energy that we want to see it through, even if it's just to confirm whether it was worth it.
Right.
But I also think there's a deeper desire for these characters to find some sense of peace, some sense of resolution. We've seen them go through so much pain and heartbreak.
Right.
And I think on some level, we want to believe that there's a light at the end of the tunnel for them.
It's like you're rooting for them.
Yeah.
Even though they're fictional. We want to see them overcome these challenges, learn from their mistakes.
Absolutely.
And ultimately find some form of happiness, whatever that may look like for them.
Exactly. And I think that's where the potential for a third season gets really interesting.
Okay.
It's not just about tying up loose ends or resolving that cliffhanger.
Right.
It's about exploring what happens after the dust settles.
Okay.
Can these characters heal from their past wounds? Can they rebuild trust both in themselves and in each other?
Yeah.
Can they find a way to move forward?
Right.
Even if it's not the way that we initially expected.
That's a really powerful idea.
Yeah.
It's like the real story begins after the happily ever after fades away.
Right.
It's about that messy, complicated process of picking up the pieces and figuring out what comes next.
Exactly. And I think that's a story that would resonate with a lot of viewers.
Right.
We've all experienced heartbreak, disappointment, the feeling of being lost and uncertain about the future. And seeing these characters navigate those same challenges with honesty and vulnerability could be so cathartic and even inspiring.
So even if their journey isn't picture perfect,
right,
it can still give us hope that we can find our own way through the darkness.
Absolutely. And who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the true happy ending after all.
Okay.
Not a fairy tale resolution,
right,
but a journey of growth. Resilience and the discovery of a new kind of happiness that we didn't even know we were looking for.
So to our listener out there, as we wrap up this deep dive, we're left with a lot to ponder.
Right.
We've explored the heartbreak,
absolutely,
the frustration, the glimmers of hope, the intense desire for a continuation of this story.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the question remains, what does a satisfying conclusion look like for you?
Is it a neat and tidy resolution where all the loose ends are tied up?
Right.
Or is it something more nuanced?
Okay.
More reflective of the complexities of real life?
Keep those thoughts swirling.
Yeah.
Because that's the beauty of a good story. It stays with us.
It does.
Long after the credits roll.
Absolutely.
It makes us think, it makes us feel.
Yeah.
And it makes us question everything we thought we knew.
It really does.
Thanks for joining us on this emotional roller coaster of a deep dive.
Thanks for having me.